Welcome to this webinar today. I am talking to Will Wigmore from Maersk. My name is Matt Cloke. I am Global SVP for Delivery Acceleration for the Catalyst business unit inside of Endava. We help our clients become more strategic and look at how we can help them use strategic technology in delivering their outcomes and their business needs, and how best to leverage our nearshore delivery capability. Will, why don't you give us a bit of a background on yourself and let us know about Maersk?
Thanks, Matt, and hello, everybody. I am Head of Enterprise Architecture here at Maersk and have been since 2017, where we've been building an enterprise architecture capability. And from time to time, we've even had a bit of Matt's help along the way. Just in terms of who Maersk are, Maersk is probably one of the, if you've never heard of us, it's one of the biggest companies you've never heard of. We're known for, probably you've seen our logo on the side of a container moving up and down a motorway somewhere, or at a shipyard. But Maersk is the largest container transport company in the world. About $36 billion. We operate in over 100 countries, and we have about 85,000 staff, of which about near 3,000 are technology people as well. So the reason I joined Maersk is the incredible transformation that the company is going through. We started, or actually realized in 2016, that life as a conglomerate, as a diversified conglomerate, was probably not the right approach in terms of shareholder value and in terms of the way the industry was moving. And when I say diversified, there was quite a number of separate business units that had a completely separate P&L. And Maersk entity was kind of like the holding company, and it was predominantly, I guess, two major business areas: the energy business, which was a major oil business, an oil drilling business as well, and an ocean business. And the transformation is really to become a very focused and joined up transport and logistics company. So in that period between 2017 and now, we've divested a number of different companies from within that portfolio, including the oil business. So I think from a timing point of view, that's served us well. Timing. We've also, it's all about timing. We've acquired businesses during that period as well. One major acquisition in ocean, one other in warehousing, and a couple in customs house brokerage, which is all to do with the flow of goods in across borders. And we've also made some internal changes as well. So, for example, joining some of those remaining business units, separate business units, together from a logistics perspective with our ocean and our terminals businesses as well. So today we believe that we are much more customer focused. So we've done a number of changes from a customer perspective. We feel as though we're more agile, both from a business point of view and a technology point of view. Our financial results, I'm pleased to say, in the last quarter actually are better than we expected they would be, given the circumstance of this year. But actually overall they're much better. So our return on invested capital is growing, and as a result of that, our ratings, our overall ratings on the stock markets and so on are improving. And we've been more digital than ever. We're now more digital than ever before as well.
Fantastic. So I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a somewhat strange year. And as we started the year, none of us could have imagined the circumstances that we would find ourselves in. But Maersk is no stranger to kind of what we call digital breakages in the industry. Perhaps you could just let people give you some background on what happened just after you joined in 2017. And I don't blame you for it. It wasn't
Yeah,
your
yeah.
fault.
Yeah, it was. The two things aren't connected. In fact, actually, Matt, it was just after, but
Right.
that's
Okay.
immaterial. Yeah, we had a major cybersecurity incident in 2017, a non-petya incident, and I guess which was very public, and we handled it in a very public way with media. And with our customers and with authorities, with the regulators and the authorities in our businesses as well. And I guess you know a bit about this as well, Matt. But it was in hindsight, I think we would say two things about it. One, it was a near extinction kind of moment.
Yeah.
There was a lot of distress and dark moments during that period and during that recovery. And I think the second thing in terms of reflection was the moment the company realized it was very much dependent on technology and software to run the business as well. And I think those two things really do stand out. I think of course, it highlighted a number of weaknesses, which quite frankly, I guess we would put down to experience now, but there was underinvestment in certain hygiene factors from a technology point of view, and there are a general underinvestment in terms of our posture towards security in general. But one or two strengths as well that came out of it. So the recovery is a remarkable story, and some of the moments of absolute inspiration from it in terms of how the company pulled together across all areas of the business, across all geographies, to recover and make do and keep trade moving. We cover about 20% of global trade, so if that was to suddenly become extinct, there would be quite some problems across supply chains around the world. I'm very happy to report that we're much stronger now from a security point of view, and you can never say never, but we believe we're in a much better position, having had a major investment over the last 3 years to put in place all of the right things from the hygiene point of view. And now actually we're more digital than ever. I mentioned that already. Yeah. Of course, it requires a different mindset towards security and resilience as well as from a support point of view. So there's a number of big improvements that we've made, and we now see security as being a benefit and not a burden. And I think that's one of our CISO Andy's mantras, and I think that's really starting to have a ripple effect. We do like to remind everybody internally once in a while about the incident, because it helps to keep the momentum, it helps to keep the energy around it, it helps to keep the investments in line with what benchmarks would be expected for our industry as well now.
Yeah. I mean, I recall being one step removed from it. So we had teams working on site when the incident occurred, and as you described it, it was came across as being very much near that extinction event. But then watching how the company pulled together and how the teams came together, and some of the things that Maersk and the IT team did within that period of time were truly remarkable. So, migrations to Office 365, restarting AD directories and all of the infrastructure required. And I know that at that point in the journey, Maersk had already made some investments in terms of, things like Maersk.com, always on platform, which we can talk about in a minute. But it was really interesting to see that from what was really a very, very dark hour, literally the rebirth of a fully functioning IT organization. I guess at the center of all of that, and obviously a lot of my working experience inside Maersk has been around the customer engagement platforms. Yeah. So I know that you've been on a several-year journey in and around that customer experience. And as you say, being a very digital organization and being very much customer focused, I guess that's an important area for you.
Yeah, very much so. And I think the whole you mentioned Maersk.com, which now, if people were to see it, would I think would be generally impressed. I think I'm told it's actually one of the top 10 business-to-business sites that, in 2020. I don't know where we were in 2017, but certainly wouldn't have been near the top 10.
Yes.
It was back then. It was unreliable. It was, you know, in terms of design, it was, you know, quite old-fashioned, and yeah, in terms of the reliability and the throughput of traffic for it, it was mostly brochureware. You know,
Yeah.
even back in 2016, 2017. In fact, our CEO, when he became CEO, took a personal interest in showing the website at executive leadership team meetings to say, you know, how can we be proud of this? It's the digital age. How can we be proud of this? And that also stimulated a lot of investment. You've mentioned about, you know, of course, when you put more and more of your trade through a digital platform, you need to make sure that the thing stays up. And we coined this phrase "always on," and used some yeah, pretty smart technology. Well, we borrowed quite a number of ideas from others, but it's been successful, and I think we've had a very, very successful uptime and continuous development of that to such an extent now that I think it's something like about 60% of our business comes through that. So that's where we get that top 10 business to business to the site. It's probably not volume based, it's value based.
Yeah.
But that's really important. And of course, we've had to mix that front end, that sort of, you know, elegant looking ends, and connect it into a whole host of legacy environments in the back end. And that's proved to be, you know, one of the challenges of the modern era, is that we've got such a reliance on many of our legacy systems, some of which are mainframe based, some of which, if they were rock stars, that they would be in the Hall of Fame. You know, we sometimes, you know, look at, we sometimes refer to legacy systems quite derogatory, in derogatory terms within our industry, but these have really been assets that have been sweated for the company over a number of years and should be Hall of Fame. We also carry a bit of risk as well. We carry a bit of risk in certain areas because of those legacy systems, and we're constantly now thinking of ways to try and improve it. Even some areas where you'd think, well, it seems like, you know, old school. I mean, EDI, for example, there's a lot of our customers who like to interact with us with EDI messages. These are for placing orders, large volumes of orders and so on, and we're going through. We think that the EDI traffic in our industry will be around for probably another 7 to 10 years at least. And although we've invested in APIs technologies and event-based technologies, we still see a role for EDI. Those different techniques, they're not the full answer, and certainly some of our customer base is happy with what they've got, and so there's no case for change for them to move at this stage in terms of their own systems.
Based organization, and the fact that IT is only one element of the overall picture, and obviously you've got lots of people working in ports and on vessels and various other things, but we all went into lockdown. We all had to return to our homes when COVID really kicked in at the first quarter of this year. Were you aware of any breakages that happened in your overall processes, or have you seen any impact of COVID, or has it been more about supporting the business through what must have been initially a very uncertain time, and then we've seen a huge shift of people onto e-commerce? So I can imagine that now the engine's really going in terms of delivering that capability.
Yeah, absolutely. I think similar to a lot of other companies of our size, we're big Microsoft users. We actually had in place a plan and pilot actually in Q4 of last year to roll out Teams. So in terms of collaboration and so on. And boy, did that accelerate. There was a slow, sort of steady plan for 2020, but boy, did it accelerate in the back end of Q1, well, early Q1, when we first started seeing things happen.
Yeah, I've noticed a trend in Maersk. It's if you want to do an Office 365 migration, then have a cyber incident, and if you want to do a Teams migration, COVID, because that way everything can be accelerated and delivered more quickly.
Absolutely. The cyber incident, I think we had to, restock 20,000 laptops and migrate to Windows 10, more or less within about 10 days, so that was, these are great accelerators. So I think in terms of the disruption, I think again, many companies of our size, I think the tech team actually came out of it with a lot of credit in terms of making that kind of smooth transition. We've got some amazing stats that were coming out at that time. Microsoft actually are also rather pleased with the way things went. We did have I guess we had some things that we came across that were problematic. So one is, of course, we would normally have maybe a couple of thousand of our users working from home at any one time at maximum, and therefore our VPN connections were dialed to that degree. We thought we had plenty of spare capacity, but when all of a sudden everybody goes to home, so that took a number of hard weekends of work to just smooth that out. I think we also had of course a lot of people coming in and wanting to access our cloud-based solutions were somewhat easier, but accessing some of our internal systems that are based in data centers and so on. We had a Citrix farm, which it wasn't up to the scale of access that was being required, because most people would normally coming in over the main network. And so that Citrix farm, I think we had that based in Azure at the time, so we actually were able to raise it up and then gradually bring it back down again as we needed to. We did also have to have some quite serious discussions with Microsoft, because they had some limitations. There were so many companies that were throwing stuff at Azure, and the other hyperscalers would have been exactly the same, that they actually had to put some kind of prioritization process in place, which we'd never seen before or since.
The cloud is still someone's data center, even if
exactly. So the myth was broken, I suppose. We certainly went up. It's the other thing that's helped us with Matt is the switch for our customers to go more online. Because of course they were working from home as well, and we've made some really good investments. And I think if we'd have just been a little bit further ahead with some of those, it would have been even better. So we've got a cloud contact center concept which was rolling out as well, which I think in other circumstances would have been brilliant. We did have, actually, I have to say, I think the company's response has been really clear and really robust right from the beginning, with 3 very clear priorities: to protect our employees, secondly, to keep trade flowing and to work with our customers and support our customers, and then thirdly, to support society as well. And I think, just in terms of maybe an anecdotal one, in terms of the not so much a technological issue, but our seafarers, who are the people who man our vessels around the world, they're typically on a pattern, on a shift pattern. And when they were due to come off their shifts, I mean, there's certain time period at sea, where you're pretty full time, but actually repatriating the seafarers when they finished on their leg of the journey, or on their shift pattern for the journey, has been quite some logistical nightmare, actually, to try and get all of those employees back to their home countries and their families during that period. So that's played heavy on us from a conscience point of view, I think.
Yeah. Shifting gears slightly,
Mm.
we see at the moment in the mobility space, and to be honest, quite broadly across the industry, the buzzword of 2020 is automation. So automation in all kinds of elements. Now, I think it's fair to say from both your perspective and my perspective, we probably would have considered our careers all about automating business processes, but it seems that there are many new technologies which are available to us now, which weren't available in the past. I'd be really interested to get some of your perspectives on automation. What does it mean to Maersk? Are you using it in a productivity way? Are you using it in a cost efficiency way? And I believe you've got some some interesting stories in how you manage things like fleets and containers, given that you apparently own one or two containers.
Yeah, 1 or 2 million actually.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah, I think in terms of automation, I think all the normal stuff applies to us as it would to any other big company. So we're constantly looking at ways to use technology internally to automate processes and to redeploy people onto more value-added things as well. So, but I think perhaps more current and relevant. So from a growth point of view, we've been using some technologies. Perhaps use an analogy here just to illustrate the point. Is from a price, all to do with pricing. So if everybody's familiar with the airline industry and booking a seat on an aeroplane, and with that you typically pay up front, you get a guaranteed seat, or you get some kind of confirmation that you'll get on the plane.
Yeah.
You must show up though,
Yes.
and that's that's the that's the kind of rules of the game with that. And it's completely the opposite in the container shipping world. So often a customer won't pay until the goods have been actually delivered at the other end. So you're kind of doing it at the other way round until the goods have been delivered as opposed to carried. When they make a booking, you don't when customers make a booking, which sounds terrible, you don't necessarily get a guarantee that you're going to get on the sailing that you want to get on.
Yeah.
So often we roll stuff, and depending on various things to do with weather and capacity and all sorts of things. And there's no obligation for the customer to actually take their container or get their container ready on time and turn up. And if they don't turn up, there's no penalties or no repercussions of any way. So we've tried to change the industry a little bit here in this respect in 2020, using some automated tools, which we call for our spot price, for our spot business, rather than our long-term contract business. But for small and medium businesses in particular, this is attractive because it gives them the chance to book online, gives them the chance to get all of the things, the guaranteed seat, and the guarantee that there's a guaranteed price as well. So rather than it be a price at the end, which may be different to the one quoted, they get a guaranteed price for that. And we use this. This is available on Maersk.com. It's called Spot. It's all to do with the spot pricing. And there's also some algorithms in there, again, like the airline industry, depending on what time of the month you're booking, how far ahead you're booking, all of those kind of factors. There's some pricing algorithms that have come into it. So this is doing two things.
Isn't it?
It's kind of, it's kind of there, and we're getting used to that. We've got more and more volumes going through that line of business, and it's really started as a pilot at the end of last year. And has really accelerated, and I think it's been one of those things that's accelerated through. So there's some clever stuff behind it that helps the trade management teams understand what the pricing dynamics are likely to be. And this is all automated. This is not stuff that can be done in somebody's head. And I think, as you say, what's different nowadays is the computing power is there and is available and can be spun up quickly. And the algorithms and the software that's behind it actually works.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I think certainly from our perspective as well, what's interesting is the entire enterprise is being automated. So that your example is a brilliant example of how automation helps a business process. But I know from working with Maersk, that you've introduced automation in software development, you've introduced automation in deployment and environment creation and infrastructure, and it's having that enterprise automation view that allows you to very successfully be true automators. Would that be the right word? But automators of things. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, again, clients talk a lot with us about kind of like machine learning and artificial intelligence, and where does that fit in an automation journey? And I think Maersk is a relatively sophisticated organization because you've been automating for many years, so you can see that there may be specific opportunities for AI and ML, but in many cases it's just about doing the simple things well, and then, as you say, leveraging the compute and other technologies that you have at your disposal. All of that being said, and a leading question, are you doing anything interesting in the AI and ML space you can talk about?
Well, I guess, you know, these things kind of merge into one, but I think just going back to your point about sometimes it's about, you know, walking before you run. And I think we're there from a product, if I think about a productivity perspective here. So we've got a number of different IoT initiatives that are going. So some to do with our containers. So we've got this concept of a remote container management concept. So a certain number, about 300,000 or 400,000 of our containers now we have the ability to control temperature during the voyage. And that's, you know, I mean, why would you use that? I mean, you know, a lot of just-in-time principles and food preservation, for example, reasons, and food ripening. So if you're on if the goods are on a vessel for a number of days or weeks, you've got the opportunity then to be much more precise in terms of what the condition of the fruit or whatever the perishable goods are when they arrive. So this is all based on IoT sensors that are built in to the containers. So that's one thing. Our fleet, our vessels, we've got about a third of our vessels now are using a solution we call Star Connect, and again that's an IoT, and that's mostly verging into the operational technology, so fuel consumption, for example, and flow meters to do with fuel consumption are telling us information that's helping us to make more predictive and proactive assessments about how fast the vessel should be going and how efficient the fuel usage is, for example. So, and given we use quite a lot of fuel, that's an important aspect of our sustainability programs. And then I guess the third example I'd give you is in our terminals, where we own about, well, we have about 70 in total terminals around the world in various ports, where the docking and the unloading and the reloading of vessels takes place. So we run that whole side of the business as well. And the assets that we have in there, you know, they're just all right for further automation. So, for example, the cranes on the side of the port that do the unloading, the automated cranes on the quay sides, you know, the efficiency of which they run, and the predictive maintenance that's required in order to make sure that throughput is maintained whilst things are being upgraded. And we've also got some cracking examples of machine learning for health and safety reasons. So, for example, you know, a dockyard can be quite a dangerous place. You've got lorries that are driving in. You've got a lot of contract staff that are coming in, for example, you know, the lorry drivers and so on. And we really don't want people, you know, wandering around in these places, you know, with heavy machinery and containers being moved around and so on. And so we've been piloting in a few locations the use of traditional camera technology that's then got a IoT edge device associated with it that is actually able to spot if somebody is unauthorized walking around in the yard, and sets off an alarm and allows, you know, from a health and safety point of view, you know, that's a great contribution. You know, it's a dangerous place to be if you know, if things are moving around like that. So there's some real great examples. You know, is that true AI? Is it just a little bit of predictive analytics? Is it just a smart use of technology. I think it's probably all of those things, but we're really at the start of this journey. There's so many more opportunities. Our data, if you think about how much economically rich data that we've got within what we hold and what we store, there's untapped potential there, and we're going after that in 2021.
Yeah, I know that you and I have definitely had that conversation before around the economic value of knowing the state of the kind of shipping and logistics industry, and obviously Maersk's position within it being one of the largest shipping and logistics provider. So I'll be very interested to see where that goes in 2021. Definitely keep me informed. Conscious of time, and this is a great conversation, but what I'd really like to kind of like round out with at the end of this is around your ideas for 2021. So I think at the end of this year, all of us would like to write up a big cross against 2020. I'm sure in 5 or 6 years' time, we'll see lots of positives and think about those things. But when you look forward to 2021, what's kind of on your radar? And I notice you use the word sustainability there. And again, that's a phrase which I'm hearing a lot more from clients, especially large enterprises. So maybe we should start with sustainability as a topic for 2021.
Yeah, sure. I think it's. I mean, we've. It's an industry that needs to, sort of kind of look in the mirror certainly from a carbon footprint point of view, and we are. I think there's. I was on a workshop just 2 weeks ago, actually, where there was a range of things. It was kind of like a mini hackathon, actually, just a range of ideas, sharing of ideas, and trying to further stimulate ideas and opportunities that we can look at in terms of our sustainability objectives, which are very, very public. It's not just about fuel. There's some IMO fuel regulations that have come in this year, which we've been able to meet. But this is much longer term. This is about heading out towards 2030 and 2050 to try and decarbonize a lot of the logistics industry. So we're putting quite a lot of energy behind that, and some of the examples I've given you about the fleet and how we're trying to make sure we optimize the use of fuel and so on. And I think as well as that, we've got some ideas in terms of how we do the triangulation on inland. So we do a lot of inland services as well in terms of road movements and haulage, and the triangulation. So instead of having, going to the north of the country to pick up an empty container to bring it back to the yards, there could be an opportunity to actually combine that with another trip where a customer is actually needing a full to be able to fill a container. And so that kind of triangulation concept. But we're partnering with other companies as well and trying to help bring forward these ideas. It's a massive challenge, and we know that there's a lot of work to do ahead of that, and how the role that technology can play in this is untapped at the moment. Yeah. So I think, and I think that probably goes for a number of other, logistics companies are probably in a similar situation. We've got to find more sustainable solutions for the industry to decarbonize. Yeah.
How, I mean, again, looking at 2021 from a perspective, what do you see around kind of like ecosystems? Do you see collaboration being an important element?
Massive. Yeah, massive. Yeah, absolutely massive, Matt. And I think this whole, the kind of catchphrase of our overall company vision is to be the integrator of container logistics. And to be the integrator, you have to be well connected to your customers and to other vendors and other partners within the supply chain as well. And I think joining up and being, very conscious about how we connect and being a sort of hyper-connected organization, I think that really is one of the themes for 21 and beyond. Actually, I don't think it'll be solved next year. Along with that, there's kind of bit of an arms race going on. I've got my cat coming to say hello to us, by the way.
That's right. Amazon.
Yeah, there's along with that, ecosystem, there's a lot more to think about in terms of security, back to where we
Yeah.
started this conversation, but also data standards, which are pretty, underutilized, underwhelming in our industry, actually, from a data standards point of view. I think the other couple of things we're thinking about for 2021 is about supply chain resilience. COVID has had a real big impact in terms of what our customers are feeding back to us. Not just COVID in terms of how supply chains got disrupted, but also the economic trends and trade tensions in general. I think
Yes.
companies are looking again at how their warehousing, their and their transportation, and how all of that fits into a more resilient supply chain. So we're expecting that to be quite a feature of 21 and beyond. And then just maybe back to the automation piece again, new and smarter services. So we can imagine things like a container having a kind of priority tag like your luggage does when you go to the airport, and getting that through the supply chain by cutting down the number of days. For example, if it's loaded first and taken off first, oh, there comes the cat. You're not going to be able to edit that out, I'm sure. But new.
Our lives in our bedrooms and our kitchens. So.
Yeah, I mean, a year ago I'd have thought that was highly unprofessional. Now I just find it amusing. Yeah, new and smarter services. I think that would be, that's something that we really want to go. We want to go after as well. And I think, being more customer aware. I mean, if I again use a small analogy, like if you went to get have a coffee 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you had a coffee. Right now, you can get 15 different varieties of it, made to order,
Exactly.
and delivered to your hand, more or less, and drunk for you as well in some cases.
Whether people realize it or not, I mean, 2020 as well has really exposed the underlying machinery of world trade, and the idea that people would go into a supermarket or try and order a product online for it to not be available. I think that was a lot of the reason why there was kind of like panic in the early days of COVID, because they didn't understand how all of these things have been delicately tuned over a number of years, and actually small disruptions then set up larger waves kind of further on down the line. So perhaps everyone has been given a crash course in the world of global logistics and global markets in the last 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else really from 2021 that you'd like to share? I mean, I think it's quite an exciting time to be looking forward for the opportunities. And I think, again, you said something earlier which kind of struck a chord for me, which is IT departments showed their value to organizations. And therefore, I think there is optimism as we look forward that people believe they can use technology in a different way to make a difference. So whether that is being more digital, avoiding those outages, or whether it is applying more automation. What are your thoughts on the subject?
I think you're absolutely right. I think technology departments need to come of age. We're wrestling with that dilemma as much as anybody. I think we've got a new strategy in place, and it's really driving us further towards, if you like, the top right hand corner, in the sense of, if you think about operational and strategic, we want to be more strategic in that sense rather than just operational. And if the other axis is internal focus versus external focus, then we want to be more external in terms of what we do and how we interact and how we support and help run parts of the business as well. So I think that's for us a strategic theme, I think, over the next year or two, as well as we continue to modernize, as we continue to automate, as we continue to put emphasis on the data that we've talked about as well, and the value of that data.
Excellent. Well, Will, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I look forward to seeing the final result of our conversation. And I just wanted to say a big thank you. I hope that you and your family stay safe and well, and look forward to working again with you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Matt. Appreciate it. Cheers for that.